at the College of Worcester. And it was, you have to see it to be it. And she talked about how we have to have people in our lives who guide us, and there are always folks who have modeled something for us, and because they did it, then we know that we can do it too. We can copy what they did. So what I want you to think about today is how the Transfiguration story is a lifting up of Jesus to say, here's a human being, you see it, now be it. Does anybody know what this is? Anybody been on vacation recently? This is in North Carolina, in the Smoky Mountains. It's called Clingman's Dome. Anybody ever go to Clingman's Dome? You are fortunate, because it is way up there. It's the highest point in the eastern United States. And it's a challenge to park in a parking lot and then climb up to Clingman's Dome. And they had all these benches along the path all the way along. And I thought, I need those benches. And you get about a third of the way up, and you're panting, and it's about like that steep. And you realize how challenging it is to climb a mountain. And so today, it's a challenge for us to go with Jesus to the places that Jesus wants us to go. This is an actual picture that I took after I took the picture of the observation tower. I think I took this from the observation tower. And these are the Smoky Mountains. You can kind of see and imagine what that might have been like for them to see this site. And this is actually Mount Tabor, which in the early writings of the Christians in the first century, they referred to this as the place where the Transfiguration took place. And I think it's interesting because Jesus told them not to build booths on top of the mountain, and now we have a chapel there. But you can see how long this is, and if you had a long view of Mount Tabor, you would see that it's a very steep climb, and it's the only large object in that whole area, so you can see out a long way. So you can imagine what that must have been like for the disciples. So there are a couple of things that are really pretty simple about the Transfiguration story. And the first is that Jesus is in the middle, right? It's a story about Jesus, then who Jesus is. And because Jesus is who he is, it's also someone that we could be. It's also about vision, right? Then to the mountaintop. We have a different vision. We have a longer range. So God calls us to have a prophetic imagination. An imagination that goes beyond asking the question, what does God want for my life? But on top of the mountain, you look out upon the world, and you ask the question, what is God's will for the world? Now before I mentioned, sometimes when I'm here, I'll say people of faith. But also when I speak in a community, a lot of times I'll say people of conscience. But in my mind, it's the same thing. It's the conscience that God gives to us and says, this is the work that I want you to be up and about. So here we have it. So what does God talk to us about? A blessing. This is my son, my love. Listen to him. This is a speaker who appeared at the College of Worcester Martin Luther King keynote in the morning. And her name is Natalie Warren, W-A-R-N-E. And she talks about anonymous extraordinaries. And these are people that you have in your life who model something for you or help you to do something or help you to be something. And she talked about the influence that her mother had on her. Her mother was a single parent. And she realized as she got older that her mother had a great influence on her because her mother was always trying to be involved in issues that made a difference in her community. And throughout her life, even though Natalie was a little skeptical of her mother's fanaticism, she kept going and kept doing these kinds of things. And through the years, Natalie was watching. And what I want to share to you is what she said. You have to see it to be it. You have to have someone in your life who is dedicated to a larger world. So this was the issue that she became involved in. This is from Uganda. And after she graduated from college, she thought about having a career. But she heard about these invisible children, all these children who are captured in towns in Uganda and forced by a warlord to be soldiers, child soldiers. You might be familiar with this. And so she joined an organization that was up and about advocating for change in the world to do something about this problem. And no change was happening. The senators had other things they wanted on the agenda. No one would put this forward. And so the organization said, who would be the most powerful voice in America? We'll see. She organized tens of thousands of people in Chicago to surround the building where Oprah Winfrey tapes her show with these banners. Oprah, we're invisible children. And these are also the anonymous extraordinaries. All these people, many of whom lived on the street. Many of these people were just people that they gathered along and they told the story about these child soldiers and believed in it. And so Oprah featured them in an episode, and in a very short time legislation was passed and they began working on that issue in Uganda. You have to be able to see it in order to be it, to make change. She also said that her mother had a quote from Martin Luther King that she always had on her refrigerator. And so Natalie put this quote on the dashboard of her car, and I want to invite you to join with me in it. If you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward. Isn't that a great quote? Because sometimes when we're trying to follow in the image of Jesus or the disciples, we're crawling, but at least we're moving in the same direction. Even sometimes our parents, we try to live up to the vision that they have for us. This is a classic. I was afraid this would happen to Jesus when I put this making up after the formatting. But I want you to imagine Jesus' head up there on the top. And this is Raphael's version of the Transfiguration. And you can see the classic Moses with the tablets and Elijah with the mantle and the disciples in disarray down there. I don't know who the guys are over in the bushes. They're not in the biblical story, but maybe that's you and me. Sometimes painters put little people that are supposed to be us in the painting. But the message is, this is my son whom I love. Listen to him. So I'm always impressed when I have a wedding or when I have a funeral or when I get to know a larger family, that often they'll all have the same mannerisms, or they'll all have the same laugh, or they'll all have the same interests. And in many very unconscious ways, people are influenced by those who are around them. And just when we gather together as the church and we come together to do good and to do God's will in the world, that influence carries over in sometimes very subtle and subconscious ways. And that's true here also of the disciples. Now we also have to remember that Elijah and Moses also had their own people that they mentored. Of course, Elijah had a Elisha, and then John the Baptist tried to dress up like Elijah to say that that time is coming. Moses passed on his message to Joshua, who eventually was the one, actually, who brought the people of Israel into the promised land. So this is a part of what it looks like to be people of faith or people of conscience, because people get it and we model their language. Now, one thing that I want to tell you today is that rational thinking in our world today is actually quite rare. Have you noticed that? That rational thinking is rare today in the world? And I was in the Board of Elections this fall, and I was getting ready to vote, and they had this big sign on the wall. Some of you may have seen it. It says, "No selfies." Did you see that sign? And I was going to take a picture of the sign that said "No selfies," but I thought that might qualify as a selfie, so I didn't take it. So I had to do a Google search, and I found this guy who actually did take a selfie in a voting booth somewhere. But this is the age of the selfie, and it's the age of bowling alone, and it's the age of doing things by yourself and taking care of yourself, and you think that you're supposed to take care of yourself. And wouldn't it be great if the motto of the church could be something like "No selfies"? Maybe we can put a sign up outside the sanctuary. There's no selfies here. Because we all have to be honest about the people who have influenced us and to say we haven't done it by ourselves. And in an economic and a political way, we have to begin to say that to the larger community, that we cannot do it by ourselves. And what I said was, humans were made for community. We're not made to compete against one another for scarce resources, just so we can survive. But God created us to care for one another so that we can help everyone to thrive. And it's truth that we are all connected in the same web. And no one can be left out of that web of God's care. This is the truth of Transfiguration, the message that was being sent very clearly to these first disciples. And as difficult as it may be, your connections with other people are the most important factor for your well-being. It's over and over again, that's true. Whether you're in a nursing home, whether you're in high school or in college, whether you work in a factory or in a farm, your connection and the quality of that connection with other people is the most important factor toward your well-being. And so we can see that there are a few people who moved us down the road, like Martin Luther King, whose greatest sermon, great speech, was, "I have been to the mountaintop," because he didn't look at himself. He had that view from Clingman's Dome that went out further than himself. And one of the things that I have listened to a lot of King's speeches, and always at the end, he would say, "And we need every one of you." We are all involved in that same web. Now, sometimes I say, I like to close my letters with, your partner in Christ's ministry. We're going out into the world as partners in God's work. And so there's great power in being a part of a movement, because we all have eyes that see different things. And there were some people with eyes who saw the child soldiers in Uganda and realized that their conscience was being tapped by God. And it came that someone else who had eyes for the way to organize made a difference in the world. It never is one person. and we need every one of you. So maybe we don't have an imagination to think about this story and allow it to push us. But this is a story about religious experience and transformations that happen in our world. So there's a guy named Morton Kelsey, who's a Catholic researcher. And he passed away in 2000, 2001. But he did a study on Catholic lay members and their spiritual experiences. And he discovered that nearly everyone that he interviewed said that they had at least one life-changing, transformative, mystical experience in their life. So he asked them a further question. He asked them if they'd ever told anybody about it. And they said, I've never told anybody about it. And when they were further asked, the obvious question, well, why didn't you go tell your priest? They're experts, right, in mystical experiences. Why didn't you tell your priest? What do you think they said?
You don't know nothing.
You would think there was something wrong with me. And so we have this hesitance in our society to talk about things spiritual, to talk about the things that matter most in our life. And even in the United Church of Christ, we have a difficulty sharing those transformative experiences that happen to us. So God lifted the curtain just a little bit so that we could see, so that we could have hope, so that we can have determination and perseverance to be about the work of a fuller vision. And that little peek was enough. So I want to encourage you to climb the mountain this Lent and recall a time when you had a transformative experience where you felt that everything was all right. When you had an experience of grace and peace that went beyond your understanding. And what we ask you to do actually in the life of the church is for you to manage your own experience. Okay? That's kind of one of the foundational differences in values between a new generation. We today are trained to manage our own experience through technology or whatever means. So this Lent, manage your own spiritual experience and set yourself up with something that will make a difference in your life. And everything that we do in a church is designed to help you to experience transcendence, to begin to think about a prophetic imagination, to see with God's eyes, to know the wonders of life and all the fullness of it. And it seems to me that sometimes in church, in worship, that when you have an object, when you get people to do something, or, the reason why I don't preach from the pulpit, sometimes I preach down here, is the word engagement, to engage you in what we're doing. The candles on Christmas Eve. How many of you have actually gotten to that point on Christmas Eve where you had that transformative experience when you sing those songs? The other thing we do in the life of the church and worship is the imposition of the ashes. And there's my commercial start right now. I got a commercial. For Ash Wednesday. But those ashes mean something. They help us to remember our mortality. Remember that you are dust, and to dust you shall return. That's one of the things we see in the house. One of the difficult things we have to deal with when we go up that mountain is our own mortality. And the mortality that we live with all the people that are important to us. That's real. That's an experience. Experience of being with God in that moment. But I want to put in a plug for Ash Wednesday. I think I've got a slide that may not be on the screen. Yeah, there we go. Okay, this is a great piece of scripture, and it has to do with the transfiguration. Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. Let us try to cling to God. And I like this painting of the Transfiguration because Jesus is in the center, but also it's got that great cloud of witnesses. So today, maybe you can think about your cloud of witnesses and all the people who helped you to look at life differently and helped you to become a reflection of the person in the middle. Oh, no. I'll read it. Ash Wednesday, I didn't get the date. February 14, 2018. This is the first time I can ever remember Ash Wednesday falling on Valentine's Day, but it kind of fits. It invites us into the season of Lent. It's a time within the church year that we acknowledge our mortality. It awakens us to the love of God. Yeah. And to struggle against everything that leads us away from the love of God and neighbor. How about if we just do the last line? That'd be all right. We can do the rest of it. It's kind of like a teaser. So you got to come Wednesday night, and you can see the rest. All right? Okay? All right. So Lent awakens us to hope in God and
to struggle against everything that leads us away from the love of God and neighbor.
Climb the mountain this Lent, use it for a spiritual journey. There are obstacles on that path, and so you need people to push you up the hill. And remember that sincere spiritual things require a great deal of effort. Lent is about a mountain of discipline. And it is absolutely true that you have to see it to be it. And that's what the life of Jesus is all about. That's why he's in the middle. And Jesus in his life and in his teachings reveal to us our best selves. And remember, it's just a glimpse. But even just a glimpse is enough. Amen.
Amen.